The coffee was bitter, but Hart had long since stopped expecting sweetness from life. She moved with practiced efficiency through the pre-dawn gloom of Rosie's diner, the ancient pot in her scarred hands releasing steam that mingled with her breath in the October chill. At 5 a.m, the world belonged to insomniacs, shift workers, and those running from demons that chased them through dreams. Maya understood the last category intimately. Through the rain-streaked windows, she watched the sun struggle to pierce the storm clouds gathering over the mountains. The weather suited her mood, gray, unsettled, with the promise of violence in the air. Her left shoulder ached, the old scars pulling tight beneath her uniform. They always did when storms rolled in, as if her body remembered not just the pain, but the terror that had carved those marks into her flesh 8 years ago. Don't think about it, she told herself, the same mantra that had kept her sane since she was 16. Don't remember the silver. Don't remember the screaming. Don't remember. The bell above the door chimed, and Maya's head snapped up, her hand instinctively moving toward the knife at her hip before training kicked in. Just a customer. A trucker by the look of him, shaking rain from his jacket as he settled into a corner booth. Coffee? She asked, already moving toward him with the pot. He nodded, studying her with the casual assessment men gave waitresses in small towns. His gaze lingered on the faint scars visible above her collar, and Maya fought the urge to pull her hair forward to cover them. She'd learned long ago that hiding only drew more attention. Rough night? He asked as she poured. They all are. Maya set the pot down with more force than necessary. Menus on the table. Cook won't be in for another hour, but I can make eggs and toast. The trucker's expression softened. Just coffee's fine, darlin'. You look like you could use some yourself. Maya almost smiled. Almost. Instead, she returned to her station behind the counter, wrapping her hands around her own mug and letting the warmth seep into her bones. The diner was a sanctuary of sorts, neutral ground where humans and supernaturals coexisted in careful ignorance. The owner, Rosie, asked no questions and paid in cash. It was exactly what Maya needed. Anonymous. Safe. Temporary. The scars on her neck throbbed again, and suddenly she was 16, pressed against the back wall of her childhood closet while her parents died in the next room. Where is she? The voice had been cold, professional. A hunter's voice. The daughter. Where is the Hart girl? Gone, her father had gasped, buying her precious seconds with his last breath. She's gone. But she hadn't been gone. She'd been 3 feet away, paralyzed with terror as silver bullets tore through everything she'd ever loved. The hunters had searched the cabin methodically, and when they'd found her hiding place, when those merciless hands had dragged her into the light. Maya's mug hit the counter with a sharp crack, bringing her back to the present. The trucker looked up with concern, but she waved him off, focusing on the simple task of cleaning up spilled coffee. The burn of it on her hands was nothing compared to the burn of silver, and she'd survived that. She'd survived everything. The bell chimed again, and this time Maya's blood went cold. 3 men in expensive suits slid into the large corner booth, their movements too fluid, too coordinated to be entirely human. Pack wolves. She could smell it on them even from across the room, that particular blend of dominance and barely leashed wildness that marked Gabriel Stone's people. Maya kept her head down, her dark hair falling forward to shadow her face as she approached their table. In small towns like this one, werewolf packs were an open secret. Everyone knew the Moonstone Pack controlled the territory, and everyone knew better than to cross them. Gentlemen, she said, voice carefully neutral. Coffee? Sure thing, sweetheart. The largest of the 3 grinned at her, flashing teeth that were just a little too sharp. Heard any interesting gossip lately? Maya's hand remained steady as she poured. Not the gossiping type. Come on now, another one chimed in. Everyone's talking about the Stone twins. Poor bastard can't keep a nanny to save his life. The third man laughed, low and ugly. Heard the Alphas offering $1 million to anyone who can last a month with those little Hellions. $1 million? The first man whistled. Hell, for that kind of money, I'd babysit the devil himself. You haven't met those kids, the second warned. My cousin's mate tried to be their teacher. Lasted exactly 3 hours before one of them froze her coffee solid and the other exploded it all over her. Maya's grip tightened on the coffee pot. She'd heard whispers about Gabriel Stone's children, twins with unprecedented powers who terrorized anyone foolish enough to try controlling them. Rich pack wolves and their entitled offspring. The story was as old as hierarchy itself. Still, the first man mused, $1 million is $1 million. How hard can it be to handle a couple of 6-year-olds? Hard enough that 47 nannies have quit, the third replied. Word is the alpha's getting desperate. Might even consider hiring outside the pack. Maya's blood stirred despite herself. She'd heard desperation in voices before, had felt it clawing at her own throat during the lean months when work was scarce and landlords came knocking. Desperation made people do stupid things. Like hire scarred, antisocial waitresses to watch their children. She finished pouring and retreated to her post, but the conversation followed her, mixing with the storm brewing outside and the older storm that never quite left her alone. Gabriel Stone was pack royalty, a billionaire alpha who commanded respect and fear in equal measure. His children were reportedly powerful enough to level buildings when they threw tantrums. And Maya? Maya was nobody. A rogue wolf hiding among humans, serving coffee, and trying to forget that she'd once been part of something larger than survival. The pack wolves continued their gossip, oblivious to the woman whose life they were casually dissecting. They spoke of private schools in Switzerland, of specialists who dealt with difficult, supernatural children, of the burden placed on an alpha trying to raise his children alone. Poor kids, one of them said, and Maya's head snapped up despite herself. Lost their mom when they were 3. No wonder they're acting out. Acting out? The second man snorted. They're dangerous. Pack's starting to whisper that maybe the alpha should consider permanent solutions. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She knew that tone, had heard it in hunters' voices when they spoke of problems that needed eliminating. The idea that these men, pack members who should protect their alpha's children, were discussing them like threats to be neutralized made her stomach turn. That's enough. The words were out before Maya could stop them, sharp enough to cut through the casual cruelty. 3 pairs of golden eyes fixed on her, and Maya realized she'd just made a very dangerous mistake. Rogues didn't challenge pack members. Rogues didn't speak unless spoken to. Rogues certainly didn't defend children they'd never met against wolves who could tear them apart without breaking a sweat. Excuse me? The largest man's voice carried a thread of menace that made Maya's wolf want to submit, to apologize, to run. She did none of those things. I said that's enough. Maya set the coffee pot down with deliberate care. Those are children you're talking about. Not problems to be solved. The tension in the diner ratcheted up several degrees. The trucker in the corner booth had gone very still, recognizing the supernatural undercurrents even if he couldn't understand them. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains like a warning. And what, the pack wolf said slowly, would a human know about werewolf children? Maya met his gaze steadily, letting him see just enough steel in her brown eyes to make him reconsider his assumptions without revealing what she really was. I know that children need protection, not threats, she said quietly. Even difficult ones. Especially difficult ones, she thought but didn't say. Especially the ones who lashed out because they were scared and alone and had already lost too much. The men exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them. Finally, the largest one smiled, not pleasantly. Well, well. Looks like we found ourselves a bleeding heart. He stood slowly, using his considerable height to loom over her. Tell you what, sweetheart. Since you care so much about those monster children, why don't you apply for the nanny position yourself? His companions laughed, but Maya didn't flinch. She'd faced down bigger monsters than overgrown bullies with too much testosterone and not enough brain. Maybe I will, she said. The laughter died. The man's smile turned sharp around the edges. You do that, he purred. I'm sure the alpha would love to meet someone with your strong opinions. They left money on the table and walked out without another word, but Maya could feel their eyes on her through the windows as they climbed into their expensive SUV. She'd just painted a target on her back, and they all knew it. The trucker cleared his throat. "That was either very brave or very stupid, miss." "Probably both," Maya admitted, her hands finally beginning to shake as adrenaline bled out of her system. She spent the rest of her shift in relative quiet, serving the occasional customer and trying not to think about golden eyes and children who froze coffee solid. By noon, when her replacement arrived, Maya was exhausted in the way that had nothing to do with physical labor and everything to do with fighting battles she couldn't win. The rain had stopped, but the storm clouds remained, heavy and oppressive as she walked the 6 blocks to her tiny apartment above the hardware store. 3 months behind on rent, her landlord had informed her yesterday. Pay up or get out. Maya climbed the narrow stairs with leaden feet, fishing her keys from her pocket as she considered her options. She could pick up extra shifts at the diner, maybe find weekend work cleaning houses for the wealthy Pack families in the hills. It wouldn't be enough, but it might buy her another month. Or she could do something incredibly stupid. Her phone buzzed just as she reached her door, the sound sharp in the hallway's silence. A job alert notification from one of the apps she'd signed up for in desperation. Maya almost deleted it without looking. Most of the postings were for part-time retail work that paid minimum wage. Then she saw the salary figure, and her finger froze over the delete button. $50,000 per month. Child care position, the posting read. Challenging children. Exceptional compensation. Non-traditional candidates welcome. Discretion required. Serious inquiries only. Maya stared at the screen until the words blurred together. $50,000 a month would solve every financial problem she had. It would let her disappear again if she needed to, start over somewhere new with enough money to do it right this time. All she had to do was apply to be the nanny for Gabriel Stone's supposedly impossible children. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains again, and Maya's scars throbbed in response. She thought of the pack wolves' casual cruelty, of children who were called monsters by the very people who should protect them. She thought of her own childhood, cut short by silver and violence and the kind of hatred that saw difference as something to be eliminated. Her finger hovered over the "apply" button as lightning split the sky. Maya Hart had survived hunters, heartbreak, and 8 years of running from her own shadow. How hard could it be to survive a couple of 6-year-olds with supernatural powers? The thunder crashed again, and Maya made her choice. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 2. Maya's ancient Honda coughed and wheezed as it climbed the mountain road, protesting every mile with the indignant rattle of an engine held together by prayer and determination. She'd bought the car for $800 3 years ago, and it showed every one of its 200,000 miles. The irony wasn't lost on her, driving to interview for a $50,000 a month position in a vehicle that might not survive the trip. The Moonstone Pack territory gates rose before her like something from a fever dream. Massive wrought iron twisted into intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move in her peripheral vision, flanked by stone pillars that had to be 20 feet tall. Security cameras tracked her approach with mechanical precision, and Maya's wolf stirred uneasily beneath her carefully constructed human facade. This wasn't just wealth. This was power, old and deep and dangerous. Her Honda shuddered to a stop at the security checkpoint, and Maya forced herself to breathe normally as 2 guards approached. They moved with the fluid grace that marked them as pack wolves, their eyes scanning her vehicle with professional thoroughness. "Maya Hart," she said, rolling down her window and offering her driver's license. "I have an appointment with Mr. Stone." The larger guard studied her ID with the intensity of someone reading state secrets. His nostrils flared slightly, and Maya knew he was scenting her. The human perfume she'd doused herself with that morning would mask most of her wolf scent, but these men were trained to be suspicious. "Purpose of visit?" the second guard asked, his hand resting casually on the radio clipped to his belt. "Job interview." Maya kept her voice steady, professional. "Childcare position." Something flickered across the first guard's face, surprise, maybe, or pity. He handed back her license and stepped away from the car. Follow the main drive to the house. Park in the visitor area. Mr. Stone is expecting you. The gates swung open with silent efficiency, and Maya drove through them feeling like she was crossing into another world. The main drive curved through pristine forest for nearly a mile before the trees parted to reveal the stone mansion in all its intimidating glory. Maya had cleaned houses for wealthy families before, but this was something else entirely. The mansion rose from the mountainside like a modern fortress, all soaring glass and steel that somehow managed to look both elegant and impregnable. Gardens terraced down the slope in perfect geometric patterns, and Maya could see the glitter of a swimming pool tucked into a grove of aspen trees. She parked her rattletrap Honda between a gleaming BMW and a Tesla, feeling more out of place than ever. Her reflection in the car's side mirror showed a young woman in her best interview outfit, a black blazer she'd found at Goodwill and dark jeans without holes. Professional enough for a diner, laughably inadequate for this. The front door opened before she could knock, revealing a man in his late 20s with the kind of easy smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Pack wolf, definitely, though his scent carried the comfortable authority of someone used to being obeyed. Maya Hart? He extended a hand. Logan Hayes, Mr. Stone's assistant. Right on time. His handshake was firm but brief, and Maya caught the slight widening of his eyes as he took in her scars. She was used to that reaction, the quick assessment, the mental cataloging of old violence. Most people had the grace to pretend they hadn't noticed. Mr. Stone is waiting in his office, Logan continued, leading her through an entrance hall that belonged in a museum. Fair warning, he's had a challenging morning. Maya followed him past artwork that probably cost more than she'd earned in her entire life, her footsteps muffled by Persian rugs that had likely been handwoven by masters centuries ago. Everything spoke of generations of wealth and power, and Maya's wolf pressed against her consciousness with nervous energy. You don't belong here, it whispered. This isn't your world. Logan stopped outside a door of dark mahogany, knocked twice, and waited for a curt enter before ushering Maya inside. Gabriel Stone's office was designed to intimidate, and it succeeded admirably. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a commanding view of the Pack territory spread below, while the man himself sat behind a desk that could have doubled as a landing strip for small aircraft. But it was the photographs that captured Maya's attention, dozens of them, all featuring the same radiant blonde woman. Beautiful, elegant, everything Maya would never be. Ms. Hart. Gabriel didn't rise from his chair, merely gestured to one of the leather seats facing his desk. Please, sit. Maya settled into the chair and forced herself to meet his gaze directly. Gabriel Stone was everything the rumors claimed and more, darkly handsome in the way that made smart women do stupid things, with the kind of presence that filled a room without effort. His eyes were the pale gray of winter storms, and they studied her with the intensity of a predator evaluating potential prey. Your resume is sparse, he said without preamble, flipping through a thin folder. No formal education beyond high school. No childcare experience. No references from previous employers. I can get references from Rosie's Diner, Maya offered. I've worked there for 2 years. Serving coffee hardly qualifies you to handle my children. Gabriel's tone was clinical, professional, and utterly dismissive. You have no formal childcare experience. Maya felt her temper stir, a dangerous thing around an alpha, but she'd endured enough condescension for one lifetime. I survived things that would break your fancy nannies. Those storm gray eyes sharpened with sudden interest. Such as loss. Pain. Learning that the world doesn't owe you anything. Maya leaned forward slightly, letting him see the steel beneath her carefully polite exterior. I know what it's like to be alone and scared and have everyone around you treat you like you're dangerous just for existing. Something flickered across Gabriel's face, surprise, recognition, maybe even approval. For a moment, the corporate mask slipped, and Maya glimpsed the man beneath the alpha facade. A man who knew exactly what she was talking about. Interesting perspective, he said carefully. And what makes you think my children need someone with your particular life experiences? Because they've gone through 47 nannies in 3 years, Maya replied bluntly. Either your children are genuinely impossible to handle, or everyone you've hired has been looking at them wrong. Gabriel's eyebrows rose slightly. And how should one look at my children, Miss Hart? Like children who've lost their mother and are acting out because they're scared and angry and don't know how to process grief. Maya kept her voice gentle but firm. Not like problems to be managed or threats to be contained. The silence stretched between them, charged with the kind of tension that made Maya's wolf pace restlessly beneath her skin. Gabriel studied her with new interest, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. "Follow me," he said finally, rising from his chair with fluid grace. "It's time you met Elena and Ethan." Maya's stomach clenched as she followed Gabriel through corridors lined with more photographs of the beautiful blonde woman, Sarah, she presumed, the children's deceased mother. Every image was a reminder that Maya was an interloper here, a temporary fix for a problem she didn't fully understand. The playroom was a child's paradise, filled with enough toys and games to stock a small store. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting rainbow patterns across walls painted with whimsical murals of forests and mountains. In the center of it all, two children sat at a low table, the picture of angelic innocence. Elena and Ethan Stone were beautiful children, inheriting the best of both parents' features. Elena had her father's storm-gray eyes and her mother's golden curls, while Ethan possessed his father's dark hair and his mother's delicate bone structure. They looked up as Maya entered, their expressions politely curious. Then Elena whispered something to her brother, and the temperature in the room plummeted 20 degrees. Maya's breath misted in the suddenly frigid air, but she didn't so much as shiver. Behind her, she heard Gabriel's sharp intake of breath, but her attention remained fixed on the children. Ethan's grin was pure mischief as his small hands began to glow with heat, the air around him shimmering like a mirage. "Another one, Ethan," Elena said in a voice far too knowing for a 6-year-old. "How long before this one runs away crying?" Ethan asked his sister, his hands growing brighter. Maya had faced down rogue wolves drunk on bloodlust and hunters with silver bullets. 2 6-year-olds with supernatural powers didn't even register on her threat assessment scale. "Nice parlor tricks," she said conversationally, settling into a child-sized chair across from them. "Can you do anything useful?" The twins exchanged looks of pure shock. Clearly, no adult had ever been unimpressed by their display of power before. Elena recovered first, her gray eyes narrowing with calculation. Without warning, ice spread across the table's surface, racing toward Maya's coffee cup and freezing it solid to her hand. Maya glanced down at the frozen cup, then back at Elena with raised eyebrows. "Your sister's power is useless without your cooperation," she told Ethan matter-of-factly. "Teamwork is everything." Ethan stared at her for a long moment, then looked at his sister's expectant face. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he reached out and touched the ice with one glowing finger. Steam rose as the frozen coffee melted, and Maya lifted the cup to take a casual sip as if nothing had happened. "Why aren't you scared?" Ethan asked, his voice small and genuinely curious. Maya set down her cup and leaned forward, meeting both children's eyes with steady calm. "Because you're children playing with fire and ice. I've been burned by real monsters." The temperature in the room returned to normal as both children simply stared at her. In the doorway, Gabriel watched with an expression she couldn't read. "What kind of monsters?" Elena asked softly. Maya smiled, and for the first time in years, it felt genuine. The kind that are afraid of little girls who can freeze coffee cups. By evening, Maya had officially accepted the position and moved her few belongings into the guest room Gabriel had assigned her. It was larger than her entire apartment, with an ensuite bathroom that had more marble than most monuments. She felt like an imposter in the silk pajamas Gabriel's housekeeper had provided, but at least they were comfortable. She was just settling into the impossibly soft bed when she heard it, a sound that made her wolf instinct snap to attention. Soft crying, muffled but unmistakably distressed. Maya slipped from her room and followed the sound down the hall to the twins' bedroom. The door was ajar, and through the gap she could see Elena thrashing in her bed, ice spreading across the sheets in jagged, chaotic patterns. The little girl was trapped in the grip of a nightmare, her power responding to her unconscious terror. Without thinking, Maya pushed open the door and approached the bed. "Elena, sweetheart, wake up." The child's power exploded outward in response to her voice, a blast of supernatural cold that should have sent Maya reeling. Instead, her wolf instincts took over, and she absorbed the icy assault with supernatural resilience, her eyes flashing golden for just an instant before she regained control. Elena's eyes snapped open, meeting Maya's briefly shifted gaze with the uncanny awareness that seemed to mark both stone children. "You're like us," Elena whispered. Maya's blood turned to ice in her veins, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Like you how?" "Different," Elena said simply. "Special. Not human." Maya sat carefully on the edge of the bed, her mind racing. She'd been so careful, so focused on hiding her true nature. But children, especially gifted children, saw things adults missed. "What makes you think I'm not human?" Maya asked gently. Elena's ice-pale eyes studied her with uncomfortable intensity. "Humans break when we use our powers." "You didn't even flinch." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as she realized how precarious her position had become. Discovery meant exposure, and exposure meant running again. But looking at Elena's tear-stained face, at the hope beginning to bloom in those two old eyes, Maya found she couldn't bring herself to lie. "Sometimes," she said carefully, "being different is what makes us strong enough to help each other." Elena smiled for the first time since Maya had met her, a real smile, bright and wondering and full of possibilities that terrified Maya to her core. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 3. Maya's dreams were full of silver and shadow, the same nightmares that had haunted her for 8 years. She was 16 again, pressed against the back wall of the closet while her world burned around her. But this time, when the hunters found her hiding place, they wore Gabriel's face, and their silver bullets were made of ice. She woke with a gasp, her heart hammering against her ribs as she fought to separate dream from memory. Pale morning light filtered through the guest room's expensive curtains, and for a moment Maya couldn't remember where she was. Then reality crashed back, the mansion, the job, the children who saw too much. And Elena was sitting in the chair beside her bed, watching her with those unnaturally intelligent gray eyes. Maya sat up slowly, fighting the urge to check if her eyes had shifted during sleep. "Good morning, sweetheart. How long have you been sitting there?" "Since the sun came up," Elena said matter-of-factly. "You talk in your sleep." Maya's blood went cold. "Do I?" "Your eyes went gold last night," Elena continued, her voice carrying the casual certainty of a child stating that the sky was blue. "When my ice hit you. They flashed, just for a second." "You were dreaming," Maya said carefully, swinging her legs out of bed. "Sometimes when we're upset, we see things that aren't really there." Elena tilted her head with a gesture so reminiscent of Gabriel that Maya's chest tightened. "I don't dream. I remember everything. Every single thing that happens, I keep it here." She tapped her temple with one small finger. "Daddy says it's part of being special." Maya stared at the 6-year-old who spoke like a miniature adult, and felt the ground shift beneath her feet. These children weren't just powerful, they were dangerously perceptive. Elena's eidetic memory meant she would remember every micro-expression, every slip of Maya's carefully constructed facade. "What exactly do you remember about last night?" Maya asked, proud that her voice remained steady. "You didn't flinch when my power hit you," Elena said simply. "You absorbed it. Like it was nothing. And your smell changed." Maya's heart stopped. "My smell?" "Underneath the flowery stuff you put on. For just a second, you smelled like Daddy. Like Pac." Maya forced herself to breathe normally as she processed this revelation. If Elena could detect her scent beneath the masking perfume, it was only a matter of time before Gabriel figured out what she was. She'd been living on borrowed time since the moment she'd walked through those gates. "Elena," Maya said gently, kneeling in front of the child's chair. "What I am or am not doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm here to take care of you and your brother. Can you understand that?" Elena studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You won't leave like the others? Not if I can help it, Maya promised, meaning it more than she'd meant anything in years. Elena smiled, the first genuine expression of happiness Maya had seen from her. Good. Ethan likes you too, even though he's pretending he doesn't. Breakfast was served in a dining room that could have seated 20, though only Maya and the twins occupied the polished mahogany table. Gabriel had already left for his office in town, Logan informed her, but he'd left strict instructions that Maya was to feel free to explore the grounds with the children. Maya was cutting up fresh fruit when Ethan decided to conduct his own test. She felt the heat building in the handle of her spoon before she saw the metal begin to glow, but her reflexes were faster than conscious thought. Instead of dropping the superheated utensil as any human would, Maya simply continued eating her yogurt, letting her accelerated healing handle the minor burns. Doesn't that hurt? Ethan asked, his dark eyes fixed on her with laser intensity. I've been hurt worse, Maya replied honestly, setting down the spoon and flexing her fingers to show they were undamaged. Show us, Ethan demanded with the imperious tone of a child unused to being denied. Maya hesitated. She'd spent 8 years hiding her scars, covering them with makeup and careful clothing choices. But looking at these two children who carried their own invisible wounds, she found herself rolling up her sleeve. The claw marks were pale now, 4 parallel lines that ran from her elbow to her wrist. They'd healed cleanly, but the silver that had tipped those claws ensured they would never fade completely. Both twins went silent, their supernatural senses undoubtedly picking up the metallic tang that still lingered in the old wounds. Who did that to you? Elena whispered, her small hand hovering over the scars as if she wanted to touch them but didn't dare. Bad people, Maya said simply. But I survived. Did you make them pay? Ethan's voice carried a thread of something dark and adult, the kind of rage that lived in children who'd lost too much too young. Maya looked into his eyes and saw herself at 16, burning with the need for vengeance against the hunters who'd destroyed her family. Justice isn't always about revenge, she said gently. Sometimes surviving and building something better is the best justice of all. Ethan frowned, clearly unsatisfied with her answer, but Elena nodded as if Maya had confirmed something she'd already suspected. 3 floors above them, Gabriel Stone stood in his home office reviewing security footage from the past 24 hours. He'd watched Maya's interview, her first interactions with his children, and the incident in Elena's room the night before. Something about the woman nagged at him, a wrongness he couldn't quite define. Logan entered without knocking, carrying a tablet and wearing the expression that meant he'd found something interesting. Dig deeper into Maya Hart's background, Gabriel ordered before his beta could speak. Her story doesn't add up. Already on it, Logan replied, settling into one of the leather chairs facing Gabriel's desk. Official records show parents died in a car accident when she was 16, like she said. But I found some inconsistencies. Gabriel paused the security feed on an image of Maya calmly handling Elena's ice blast. What kind of inconsistencies? The accident report mentions extensive damage to their cabin, damage that doesn't match a car accident. Claw marks on the door frame. The coroner's report lists cause of death as massive trauma consistent with vehicular collision, but there are photos of silver bullets recovered from the scene. Gabriel's blood went cold. Silver bullets meant hunters, professional killers who specialized in supernatural prey. What else? She was found 3 days after the incident, hypothermic and traumatized. Spent 2 weeks in the hospital before being released to foster care. Logan's expression was grim. There's no record of her being questioned about what really happened that night. Gabriel switched to a live feed from the dining room, where Maya was showing his children how to play some sort of card game. Elena was actually laughing, a sound he hadn't heard since Sarah's death. She doesn't coddle them, he murmured, watching Maya matter-of-factly hand Ethan a new book when the boy incinerated his previous one in a fit of pique. She doesn't fear them. Most humans would be terrified, Logan agreed. But look at this morning's footage. The security feed switched to show Ethan superheating Maya's spoon. Gabriel leaned forward, watching Maya's complete lack of reaction to what should have been agonizing burns. No human could hold molten metal without screaming, Gabriel said quietly. That's what I thought too, Logan replied. So I had our tech team enhance the audio from last night's incident in Elena's room. The sound quality was grainy, but Gabriel could clearly hear Maya's voice. Elena, sweetheart, wake up. What made his blood pressure spike was the undertone, a subtle harmonic that marked the voice of a dominant wolf attempting to calm a distressed pack member. She's one of us, Gabriel breathed. Has to be. But why hide it? And if she's pack, why isn't she in our system? Gabriel's mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. A werewolf hiding among humans was either running from something or planning something. Given Maya's background and the evidence of Hunter involvement in her parents' death, he was betting on the former. Keep digging, he ordered. But carefully. If she's running from hunters, we don't want to expose her unnecessarily. And if she's here for some other reason? Gabriel looked at the screen again, watching his children's faces light up as Maya performed some sort of card trick. For the first time in 3 years, Elena and Ethan looked like normal children instead of dangerous anomalies. Then we deal with it when the time comes. The afternoon brought an unwelcome visitor in the form of Vivian Cross, arriving with her usual fanfare and arms full of expensive gifts. Maya watched from the kitchen window as the elegant blonde emerged from her pristine white BMW, her designer outfit and perfect makeup making her look like she'd stepped from the pages of a fashion magazine. She's back, Elena said glumly, abandoning the card game to peer over Maya's shoulder. Who's back? Maya asked, though she had a sinking feeling she already knew. Vivian, Ethan replied with all the enthusiasm of someone discussing root canal surgery. She wants to marry Daddy. Maya felt an unexpected stab of something that might have been jealousy, which was ridiculous. She'd known Gabriel Stone for exactly 2 days, and her job was to care for his children, not develop feelings for their father. Vivian swept into the kitchen with the confidence of someone who considered herself mistress of the house, her sharp gaze taking in the cozy domestic scene with obvious disapproval. How quaint, she said, her smile bright and predatory. Playing with the help, children? They're creating art, Maya replied evenly, gesturing to the intricate sculptures Elena had crafted from ice while Ethan added delicate details with carefully controlled flame. When's the last time you made something beautiful? Vivian's eyes flashed gold for just an instant, a sure sign that Maya had hit a nerve. I create beauty everywhere I go, dear. Some of us are simply born with better, raw materials to work with. Her gaze lingered deliberately on Maya's scars, and Maya felt her own wolf stir in response to the challenge. But she kept her expression neutral, her scent carefully controlled. The children seem happy with their current arrangement, Maya said mildly. Children often form attachments to inappropriate figures, Vivian replied, settling into a chair with the air of someone claiming territory. It's the responsibility of the adults in their lives to guide them towards suitable influences. Elena and Ethan exchanged glances, then wordlessly returned to their game, effectively dismissing Vivian's expensive gifts in favor of Maya's simple card tricks. The snub was so perfectly executed that Maya had to hide a smile. You're just the nanny, Vivian said quietly when the children were distracted. Don't get ideas above your station. I'm here for the children, not their father, Maya replied. Gabriel needs a proper Luna. Someone from a good pack family, with the breeding and connections to strengthen his position. Vivian's voice carried the casual certainty of someone who'd never questioned her own worth. Someone worthy of his status. Maya met her gaze steadily. Then you better find him one. Vivian's claws extended slightly, just enough to catch the afternoon light streaming through the kitchen windows. Maya noticed but didn't react, keeping her own wolf buried deep beneath her human facade. Careful, little girl, Vivian purred. You're playing in a league you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Maya said softly. The question is whether you do. The pool incident happened 2 hours later, when Maya decided the twins needed some outdoor time and fresh air. The mansion's pool was a work of art in itself, natural stone and cascading waterfalls that made it look like something from a resort magazine. Elena, apparently feeling the need to show off for Maya's benefit, decided to demonstrate her powers by freezing the entire pool solid in a matter of seconds. Not to be outdone, Ethan superheated his half until steam rose like fog, creating a sauna effect that would have been dangerous for any normal human in the vicinity. The pool maintenance worker who chose that moment to check the filtration system nearly passed out from the sudden temperature differential. Maya didn't think, she simply moved, covering the distance between herself and the struggling man with supernatural speed and lifting him clear of the danger zone with strength that no human woman should possess. She was giving the man water and checking his pupils for signs of heat stroke when Gabriel arrived, having been alerted by the mansion's environmental sensors. "How did you move so fast?" he asked, his storm-gray eyes fixed on her with uncomfortable intensity. "Adrenaline," Maya replied, helping the maintenance worker to a shaded chair. "People can do amazing things when someone's in danger." But Gabriel's enhanced senses were already parsing the information his nose provided, catching the scent of pack, of wolf, beneath the human perfume she wore like armor. That evening, Gabriel cornered her in the kitchen while she prepared the twins' bedtime snacks. "What are you?" he asked without preamble. Maya didn't look up from slicing apples. "Your children's nanny." Your background check was clean, but backgrounds can be fabricated. Gabriel moved closer, his presence filling the kitchen with the kind of dominance that made lesser wolves submit. "Your reflexes, your strength, the way you don't fear the twins' powers." "Maybe I'm just good at my job," Maya said evenly. "No human could do what you do." Gabriel's voice carried the absolute certainty of an alpha who'd never been successfully lied to. Maya finally looked up, meeting his golden eyes with her carefully controlled brown ones. The air between them crackled with tension, and she could feel her wolf responding to the proximity of such powerful masculinity. "Are you firing me?" she asked. Gabriel studied her face, searching for something she wasn't sure she wanted him to find. "Should I be?" Before Maya could answer, Elena and Ethan appeared in the kitchen doorway, drawn by the emotional undercurrents they were old enough to sense but too young to fully understand. "Daddy, don't send Maya away," Elena said, her gray eyes wide with distress. "She's not like the others," Ethan added, moving to stand protectively beside his sister. "She understands us." "Go back to bed," Gabriel said firmly. "This is adult business." "Maya makes the nightmares stop," Elena whispered, and Gabriel's expression softened slightly. Maya's heart clenched at the admission. Elena had suffered night terrors since her mother's death, her ice powers triggered by fear and grief that no 6-year-old should have to bear. "Please, Daddy," Ethan added, his young voice carrying a note of desperation that made Maya want to gather both children in her arms. "We'll be good." Gabriel looked between his children and Maya, and she saw the exact moment he made his decision. "We'll discuss this later," he told Maya. "For now, nothing changes." An hour later, Maya was tucking the twins into their beds when Elena whispered something that turned Maya's blood to ice. "We know what happened to your parents. The hunters that killed them? They're coming here." Maya froze, her hand stilling on Elena's blanket. She'd never told anyone about the hunters, had carefully constructed a story about a car accident that matched the official records. "How do you?" "We see things," Elena interrupted, her gray eyes reflecting an ancient knowledge that had no business existing in a child's face. "Dreams that aren't dreams. The bad men know about Daddy's children now. They're coming for us too." Maya sank onto the edge of Elena's bed, her mind reeling. If the hunters had found Gabriel's children, if they were planning another massacre like the one that had destroyed her family. "When?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elena's small hand found hers in the darkness. "Soon." If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 4. Maya jerked awake at 3 in the morning, her nightgown soaked with sweat and her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird desperate for escape. The dream was always the same, silver bullets tearing through the night, her parents' screams echoing through the small cabin, the hunters' cold voices as they searched for her hiding place. But this time, something had been different. This time, when the lead hunter turned toward her closet, he'd worn Gabriel's face. She pressed trembling hands to her eyes, trying to banish the lingering images. It was just her subconscious working through her fears about discovery, about what would happen when Gabriel finally pieced together the truth about what she was. Nothing more than anxiety manifesting in the form of twisted memories. But even as she told herself this, something compelled her to check on the twins. Maya slipped from her bed and padded barefoot down the hallway to Elena and Ethan's room. She expected to find them sleeping peacefully, perhaps to reassure herself that the children were safe and her nightmares were just that, nightmares. Instead, she found both 6-year-olds lying wide awake in their beds, staring at the ceiling with expressions far too old for their young faces. "You dreamed about them too," Ethan said without looking at her, his voice carrying the flat certainty of someone stating an obvious fact. Maya's blood turned to ice in her veins. "Dreamed about who, sweetheart?" "The bad men with silver guns," Elena whispered, her gray eyes reflecting the moonlight streaming through the bedroom windows. "They had Daddy's face in your dream, but that's not what they really look like." Maya gripped the doorframe to keep herself upright. The twins were somehow connected to her memories, seeing her dreams as if they were their own. The implications of that connection terrified her more than any hunter ever could. 3 floors below, Gabriel Stone stood in his home office, surrounded by the detritus of a sleepless night spent in research. Empty coffee cups littered his desk alongside printouts of news articles, police reports, and background checks. Logan sat in the leather chair across from him, his laptop open and his expression grim. "Found it," Logan said quietly, turning his screen toward Gabriel. "News article from 8 years ago. Family dies in home invasion, daughter missing." Gabriel leaned forward to study the grainy photograph accompanying the article. A 16-year-old girl with haunted brown eyes and unmarked skin testified before a panel of investigators. Even without the scars that now marked her, Gabriel would have recognized Maya Hart anywhere. But it was the details in the article that made his blood run cold, details that the human police had recorded but failed to understand. "Claw marks on the doorframe," Gabriel read aloud. "Silver bullets recovered at the scene. The daughter found 3 days later, suffering from exposure and severe trauma." His jaw clenched. This wasn't a random home invasion. "Hunters," Logan said with quiet certainty. "Professional ones, by the look of it. They weren't after random werewolves, they were targeting the Hart family specifically." But why lie about being human? Gabriel studied Maya's 16-year-old face in the photograph, seeing echoes of the woman who now cared for his children with such fierce protectiveness. "Maybe she's been hiding for 8 years, Logan suggested. Running from whoever killed her family." Gabriel's enhanced hearing picked up the sound of soft footsteps in the hallway above, and he knew without looking that Maya was checking on Elena and Ethan. The woman who'd told him she understood loss, who'd shown his children patience and acceptance when no one else could, she'd been running from the same kind of monsters that now threatened his family. "Keep digging," Gabriel ordered, but his mind was already elsewhere, already calculating the implications of having a survivor of a hunter attack living under his roof. "I want to know everything about what happened that night." Morning came gray and overcast, with storm clouds gathering over the mountains like a physical manifestation of the tension that had settled over the mansion. Maya moved through the familiar routine of preparing breakfast, but her hands shook slightly as she poured orange juice and buttered toast. The twins were unusually quiet, picking at their food with none of their usual animated chatter. Elena absently froze her orange juice solid, the glass cracking from the sudden temperature change, while Ethan reduced his toast to charcoal without seeming to notice. "What's wrong?" Maya asked gently, settling into the chair between them. Elena looked up with those 2 knowing gray eyes. "They're getting closer." "The silver men," Ethan added, his voice barely above a whisper. "They know about our powers now." Maya's fork clattered against her plate. Before she could ask how the children could possibly know such a thing, Gabriel entered the dining room, his presence filling the space with barely leashed tension. "What silver men?" he asked, his alpha authority making the question sound more like a command. Both twins immediately went silent, but Maya saw the fear in their eyes, the same bone-deep terror she'd carried for 8 years. They knew what was coming because somehow, impossibly, they could sense it approaching like a supernatural early warning system. Gabriel's storm-gray eyes met Maya's across the table, and she saw the exact moment when understanding dawned. He knew what she was, had probably known since yesterday's incident at the pool. The only question now was what he intended to do about it. After the twins had been settled in the playroom with their tutor, Gabriel pulled Maya aside into his study. The morning light streaming through the tall windows seemed harsh and unforgiving, highlighting every line of tension in his face. "I know what you are," he said without preamble. Maya lifted her chin, meeting his gaze with as much dignity as she could muster. "Do you?" "Rogue wolf. Parents killed by hunters. You've been hiding among humans ever since." Gabriel's voice was matter-of-fact, but Maya caught the undercurrent of something that might have been sympathy. Her shoulders slumped in defeat. The game was up, the careful facade she'd maintained for 8 years finally crumbling. "Are you going to turn me in?" Gabriel's eyebrows rose slightly. "Turn you into who?" "The hunters who killed your family." "Your pack then," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Rogues aren't welcome anywhere. We're considered threats to pack stability." Gabriel moved closer, his presence warming the space between them despite the emotional chill that had settled over the conversation. "You're welcome here. You're the first person my children have trusted since their mother died." Maya stared at him, searching his face for any sign of deception or ulterior motive. Instead, she found only the fierce protectiveness of a father who would do anything to keep his children safe, even harbor a rogue wolf with a dangerous past. 2 miles away, hidden in a grove of pine trees with a clear view of the stone mansion, Marcus Cole adjusted the focus on his binoculars and studied the imposing structure that had become his target. At 52, Marcus had been hunting supernatural threats for nearly 3 decades, and he'd never failed to complete a mission. The Stone twins represented something new, children born with powers that defied everything the hunting community thought they knew about werewolf genetics. Fire and ice, perfectly balanced, just as the ancient prophecies had predicted. "The Stone twins are confirmed," Marcus told his team, lowering the binoculars. "Fire and ice powers, just like the prophecy said." His second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Patterson, studied the mansion's blueprints spread across the SUV's hood. "What about the nanny?" "She's not in our files." Marcus shrugged dismissively. "Civilian casualty. We go in tonight when they're asleep." What Marcus didn't know was that the civilian casualty was the same Maya Hart who'd escaped his predecessor's raid 8 years ago, the one survivor who'd slipped through their fingers and disappeared into the human world. If he had known, he might have planned more carefully. As afternoon faded toward evening, Vivian Cross sat in a roadside diner 30 miles from the mansion, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against the formica table as she waited. When Marcus Cole slid into the booth across from her, she didn't bother with pleasantries. "I've disabled the perimeter alarms like you asked," she said without preamble, her voice low enough that other diners wouldn't overhear. "And the children's location?" Marcus asked, his cold eyes studying her with the professional assessment of a man who trusted no one completely. "3rd floor, east wing. The nanny sleeps in the room between them." Vivian's stomach churned with what might have been guilt, but she pushed the feeling aside. This was for the greater good, for the stability of the pack structure that Gabriel's impossible children threatened to destroy. "You understand your pack will be left alone if you cooperate?" Marcus asked. "Just make sure Gabriel survives," Vivian said firmly. "I need him to see reason about proper leadership." Marcus nodded, but the smile that crossed his face held no warmth. Vivian didn't know that he had no intention of leaving Gabriel Stone alive. Dead martyrs were so much easier to manage than living witnesses. Back at the mansion, Maya prowled the corridors like a caged wolf, her instincts screaming danger with every step. She checked windows, tested locks, and memorized escape routes with the paranoid thoroughness of someone who'd survived one hunter attack and refused to be caught unprepared for another. Gabriel found her in the security center, studying the feeds from the perimeter cameras with intense concentration. "What is it?" he asked, moving to stand beside her. "Something's coming," Maya said, her voice tight with the kind of certainty that came from supernatural senses operating at full alert. "I can feel it in the air, in the way the birds have gone silent." Gabriel frowned, checking the displays himself. "The twins mentioned silver men. You think hunters are actually tonight?" They both turned to find Elena and Ethan standing in the doorway, their young faces grave with knowledge no children should possess. Elena's breath misted in the suddenly cold air, while Ethan's hands glowed with barely contained heat. "They come tonight when the moon is dark," Ethan said, his dark eyes reflecting an inner fire that had nothing to do with his supernatural abilities. "Maya, they want you too now," Elena added, her gaze fixed on the woman who'd become their protector. "They know you survived." Gabriel immediately reached for his phone, but Maya caught his wrist before he could dial. "No," she said urgently. "This is about me. I should leave before." "You're not going anywhere," Gabriel interrupted, his alpha authority making the words a command rather than a request. "I won't let my past destroy your children," Maya protested, but Gabriel's next words stopped her cold. "And I won't let hunters destroy what's left of my family." The word hit Maya like a physical blow. Family. For the first time in 8 years, someone was claiming her as pack, as belonging somewhere other than the margins of society where rogues were forced to live. While the adults argued strategy and Gabriel called Logan to mobilize the pack's security forces, Elena and Ethan slipped away unnoticed. They moved through the mansion's corridors with the purposeful stride of children on a mission, eventually arriving at the wine cellar beneath the kitchen. Hidden behind a rack of vintage bottles that their mother had collected, a section of stone wall swung inward to reveal a secret room that Sarah Stone had prepared before her death. "Mommy said to use this if the bad men ever came," Elena whispered, her small hands running over ancient weapons that hummed with protective magic. "But only if we're together," Ethan added, touching a piece of armor that would have fit a child his size perfectly. On a small desk in the corner sat Sarah's journal, leather-bound and filled with her careful handwriting. Elena opened it to the last entry, reading words their mother had written just days before her death. "The prophecy is real. My children are the keys to ending the hunter war forever. But they need a guardian who understands loss, who can teach them that power without love is merely destruction. When the time comes, they will know what to do." As night fell over the mansion like a shroud, Maya conducted one final security check. Her wolf senses were screaming now, every instinct she possessed demanding that she run, that she put as much distance as possible between herself and the approaching danger. That's when she found the disabled alarms. The sophisticated security system that should have been monitoring the perimeter had been systematically shut down from the inside, clear evidence of betrayal from someone with access to the mansion's most sensitive systems. Maya ran through the corridors toward Gabriel's office, her heart hammering with the knowledge that they were already too late. The hunters weren't coming, they were here. Red laser sights cut through the darkness outside the windows, painting crimson dots across the walls as tactical teams moved into position. The sound of helicopters filled the air, their rotors beating like mechanical thunder against the storm clouds. Through the mansion's reinforced windows, Maya could see soldiers in tactical gear rappelling onto the grounds, their movements coordinated with military precision. Gabriel appeared in the hallway at the same moment she reached his office, his golden eyes already blazing with the fury of an alpha whose territory was under attack. "They're here," he said, his voice carrying the deadly calm that preceded violence. Elena and Ethan materialized between them as if they'd stepped out of the shadows themselves, their powers already activating in response to the threat. Elena's breath misted with supernatural cold while Ethan's hands glowed with heat that made the air shimmer around him. "It's time," Elena said, her 6-year-old voice carrying the weight of ancient prophecy. "Time to show them what monsters really look like," Ethan added, and Maya realized that the real battle was just beginning. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 5. The first window exploded inward with a sound like thunder, spraying glass across the marble floor as black-clad figures rappelled through the opening with military precision. Maya's wolf instincts kicked in before her conscious mind could process the threat. 6 different entry points, 12 hostiles, all armed with weapons that gleamed with the telltale sheen of silver. "Get the twins to the safe room," Maya commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd survived one hunter attack and refused to die in another. Gabriel spun toward her, his storm-gray eyes wide with confusion. "What safe room?" "The one Mommy made," Elena said, appearing at Maya's side with Ethan close behind, both children moving with the eerie calm that marked them as far older than their 6 years. "We'll show you," Ethan added, but his words were cut off as more windows exploded around them. Silver bullets sprayed the hallway where they'd been standing seconds before, the distinctive whine of the metal making Maya's wolf recoil in instinctive terror. She grabbed both children and dove behind a marble pillar as Gabriel roared something that might have been orders into his phone. The first hunter rounded the corner while Maya was still shielding the twins with her body. She saw the silver weapon rising toward Elena's golden head and something primitive and deadly took control. Maya's eyes blazed gold as she partially shifted, not the full transformation that would leave her vulnerable to silver, but something between human and wolf that amplified her speed and strength while keeping her reasoning intact. Claws extended from her fingertips as fangs dropped to override her human teeth, and she moved with supernatural grace to disarm the hunter in one fluid motion. The man's weapon clattered across the floor as Maya's claws opened 4 parallel lines across his throat, not deep enough to kill, but sufficient to send him stumbling backward in shock. Gabriel stared at her with an expression caught somewhere between awe and terror. He'd never seen a wolf fight like this, precise, deadly, controlled despite the obvious fury driving her actions. "Stay behind me," Maya commanded, positioning herself between the hunters and the children like a living shield. The wounded hunter pressed a hand to his bleeding throat and spoke into his radio with breathless excitement. "The Hart girl. Marcus, we found her." Maya's blood turned to ice. They knew who she was, had been hunting her specifically. This wasn't just about Gabriel's children, it was about finishing what they'd started 8 years ago in a small cabin where her parents had died protecting her. Elena and Ethan saw the hunter grab from Maya's arm, trying to drag her away from them, and their young faces went cold with a rage that had nothing to do with childhood tantrums. "Don't touch our Maya," Elena said, her voice carrying the kind of Arctic chill that preceded avalanches. The hallway instantly dropped to sub-zero temperatures. Ice spread across every surface in intricate, deadly patterns, not the chaotic freeze of Elena's nightmares, but something deliberate and beautiful and utterly lethal. Icicles formed along the ceiling like crystalline spears, and frost covered the walls in designs that looked almost like runes. "You made a mistake coming here," Ethan said with the quiet certainty of a child stating an obvious fact. He superheated the air around the hunter until the man's tactical gear began to smoke and his face flushed red with heatstroke. The hunter fired wildly, panic overriding training, but the extreme temperature differential caused his silver bullets to shatter mid-air like glass, their fragments harmless as they scattered across the frozen floor. Gabriel watched his children fight with the coordination of soldiers twice their age and finally understood what Maya had been trying to tell him. They weren't just powerful, they were protectors. All their bad behavior with previous nannies had been them testing for someone worthy of their loyalty, someone who would see them as children instead of weapons. Maya had proven herself by not fearing them, by treating their powers as gifts rather than curses. "Logan, where the hell are my enforcers?" Gabriel barked into his earpiece, his alpha authority cutting through the chaos. Blocked at the main gate, Logan's voice crackled back, tight with frustration. "Someone gave the hunters our patrol schedules. They knew exactly when and where to set up roadblocks." Gabriel's jaw clenched as the implications hit him. This level of coordination meant someone inside his organization had betrayed them, someone with access to security protocols and pack movement patterns. The answer came in the form of Vivian Cross stepping into the hallway, flanked by 2 hunters who kept their weapons trained on Gabriel while carefully avoiding the children's line of sight. "Stand down, Gabriel," Vivian said, her voice carrying the kind of reasonable tone that made her betrayal even more chilling. "This doesn't have to get ugly." Gabriel stared at the woman he'd known since childhood, the pack member he'd trusted with his life countless times. "Vivian? What did you do?" "What you couldn't," she replied, lifting her chin with defiant pride. "Made the hard choice. These children are too dangerous to exist." Maya's claws extended fully as her wolf surged closer to the surface. "You sold out children." "I sold out monsters," Vivian shot back, her own eyes flashing gold with werewolf fury. "You have no idea what those prophecies say, what they're destined to become." Before either woman could move, Marcus Cole entered the hallway with 6 additional hunters, his presence commanding attention through sheer force of will. At 52, he moved with the controlled grace of a predator who'd spent decades perfecting the art of killing supernatural beings. Scars crisscrossed his visible skin like a roadmap of violence, and his pale eyes held the cold calculation of someone who viewed werewolves as problems to be eliminated rather than people to be reasoned with. Gabriel Stone, Marcus said, his voice carrying the casual authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Your mate Sarah caused us a lot of trouble before we eliminated her. Gabriel's eyes blazed gold with pure rage, his alpha power filling the hallway with the kind of dominance that made lesser wolves submit involuntarily. You killed Sarah? Car accident, we called it, Marcus replied with the satisfaction of someone revealing a carefully kept secret. Had to stop her from completing the ritual that would have made your children invincible. Elena stepped forward, ice swirling around her small form like a protective barrier that glittered with deadly beauty. Mommy didn't complete the ritual because she knew we needed to choose our own guardian. The guardian who would love us enough to die for us, Ethan added, his hands glowing with heat that made the air shimmer around him like a mirage. Marcus studied the children with the clinical interest of a scientist examining particularly dangerous specimens. Touching. The Hart girl dies first, then the freaks. Maya stepped in front of the twins, her partial shift deepening until she existed in the space between human and wolf, not quite either, but something fierce and deadly that embodied the protective fury of both. Her dark hair seemed to float around her shoulders as if moved by invisible wind, and her brown eyes had gone completely gold. You want them, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that spoke to the wolf in every supernatural being present. You go through me. Marcus smiled with the cold satisfaction of a hunter who'd finally cornered his prey. We went through your parents easily enough. I'm not my parents, Maya replied, and launched herself at him with 8 years of suppressed rage driving her forward. She moved faster than the hunters could track, her form blurring as she tapped into reserves of speed and strength that most werewolves never accessed. Marcus barely had time to raise his weapon before Maya was on him, her claws seeking the vulnerable spots in his tactical armor with the precision of someone who'd studied human anatomy. But there were too many of them, and they'd come prepared for wolves. Silver nets deployed from concealed launchers, designed to tangle and burn supernatural prey, while tranquilizer guns loaded with wolfsbane-laced darts provided non-lethal takedown options. Maya fought like a woman possessed, taking down 3 hunters before the silver net dropped over her from above. She screamed as the metal burned through her clothes to sear her skin, the sound echoing through the mansion like the cry of a wounded animal. Elena and Ethan saw their chosen guardian trapped and tortured, and something fundamental snapped inside them. The careful control their mother had taught them, the restraint Maya had encouraged, all of it shattered in the face of watching someone they loved being hurt. You hurt our family, they said in perfect unison, their voices harmonizing in a way that made the air itself vibrate with power. Their abilities exploded outward in perfect synchronization, Elena's ice and Ethan's fire no longer separate powers but 2 halves of a single devastating force. The temperature differential created hurricane-force winds that tore through the mansion, sending hunters flying like leaves in a storm. Windows shattered throughout the building as the pressure wave expanded, and the very foundations groaned under the assault. Gabriel realized with growing horror that his children were about to bring down the entire building in their rage. He could save either Maya or stop Elena and Ethan from killing everyone, including themselves, but he couldn't do both. Elena. Ethan. Stop, he roared, his alpha command cutting through their fury. They hurt Maya. Elena screamed back, tears freezing on her cheeks as her power continued to build. Maya's strong. Gabriel shouted, praying he was right. She'll survive. But if you don't control this, you'll kill her too. The twins hesitated, their power wavering as they processed his words. For a moment, the hurricane winds calmed and the temperature extremes stabilized. In that moment of hesitation, Marcus Cole raised a weapon unlike any other in the room, sleek, purpose-built, gleaming with silver inlay that formed runic patterns along its barrel. This wasn't designed to capture or contain. This was designed specifically to kill supernatural children. Prophecy ends here, Marcus said with quiet satisfaction, and fired directly at Elena. Maya, still trapped in the silver net that burned her skin with every movement, saw the bullet's trajectory with the hyperclarity that came from supernatural senses operating at their peak. Time seemed to slow as she calculated angles and distances, weighing her own survival against the life of the child she'd sworn to protect. There was no choice at all. Maya threw herself forward, the silver net tearing her skin as she twisted to intercept the bullet meant for Elena. The specialized round punched through her shoulder with devastating force, silver spreading through her system like liquid fire. As Maya collapsed, her blood mixing with the silver burns to create a pattern of suffering across the marble floor, the twins' power exploded beyond all control or reason. Maya! Elena screamed, her voice breaking with anguish. No! Ethan roared, his rage incandescent. The mansion began to collapse as ice and fire tore it apart from the inside, the children's grief and fury unleashed without restraint or mercy. Through the chaos, Maya could hear Gabriel shouting orders that no one could follow, could feel the building shaking itself to pieces around them. But all she could see were Elena's gray eyes, wide with terror and loss, as darkness closed in around her. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 6. Maya lay crumpled on the marble floor, her life bleeding out through the silver-poisoned wound in her shoulder. The specialized bullet had been designed to kill supernatural children, its silver core laced with compounds that would shut down accelerated healing and send toxins racing through a werewolf system like acid through veins. Against a full-grown wolf, it might have been survivable. Against Maya, already weakened by the burning silver net, it was a death sentence delivered with surgical precision. But even as silver fire spread through her body, Maya's eyes stayed locked on the twins. Elena knelt beside her, small hands hovering over the wound as if she could somehow heal it through sheer force of will, while Ethan stood guard with flames dancing around his clenched fists. Their power continued to tear the mansion apart, ice spreading in crystalline patterns that shattered support beams while superheated air melted steel fixtures into modern art sculptures of twisted metal. Elena. Ethan. Maya whispered, each word a monumental effort. Control it. Don't let anger control you. We can't stop it. Elena sobbed, tears freezing on her cheeks before they could fall. Ice spread from her hands in chaotic spirals, racing up the walls to create a frozen hellscape. We're going to hurt everyone. We don't know how. Ethan cried, his fire melting the marble beneath his feet into glowing pools. It's too big now. Gabriel watched his children's power spiral beyond all control and realized with growing horror that they were about to bring down the entire building. The mansion groaned around them as temperature extremes stressed every joint and beam past its breaking point. Soon the structure would collapse, burying everyone, hunters and pack alike, under tons of steel and stone. Logan fought his way through the chaos to reach them, carrying Sarah's leather journal from the secret room. His clothes were singed from Ethan's flames and frost covered his dark hair from Elena's ice, but he pressed forward with the desperate determination of a beta protecting his alpha's family. Gabriel. Logan shouted over the roar of wind and flame. Sarah's journal. There's a ritual. A way to save Maya and bind the twins' power. Gabriel caught the journal as debris rained down around them. What kind of ritual? A guardian bond, Logan replied, ducking as a chandelier crashed to the floor in an explosion of crystal. It'll link Maya's life force to the twins, but what? Gabriel demanded, scanning the pages with growing desperation. She'll be tied to them forever. If they die, she dies. If she dies. Logan's expression was grim. The bond could kill them all. Gabriel looked at his children, then at Maya bleeding out on the floor, her brown eyes already beginning to lose focus. Around them, the mansion continued its slow-motion collapse as the twins' grief-fueled power tore it apart from the inside. The remaining hunters had taken cover behind whatever they could find, Marcus Cole among them with his pale eyes calculating odds and alternatives. Some had already retreated to safer positions, unwilling to risk their lives for a mission that had clearly gone wrong. But Marcus remained, his specialized weapons ready, waiting for an opportunity to finish what he'd started. Everyone evacuate. Marcus shouted to his team. We're burning this place down with them inside. Vivian, pressed against a wall to avoid the worst of the temperature extremes, turned toward him with sudden alarm. Wait. Gabriel, you can still save yourself. Leave the children and come with us. Gabriel's golden eyes blazed with fury as he looked at the woman who'd betrayed everything he held sacred. Go to hell. Vivian's face twisted with a mixture of betrayal and rage. You choose monsters over your own kind. I choose my family, Gabriel replied, and turned his attention back to Sarah's journal. As silver poison flooded her system, Maya began to experience something that defied medical explanation, visions that weren't her own memories but belonged to the children she'd sworn to protect. She saw Sarah's death through Elena's eyes, felt the confusion and terror of a 3-year-old who couldn't understand why mommy wouldn't wake up. She experienced Ethan's desperate attempts to control powers that responded to his emotions, saw him accidentally burning toys and clothes while trying so hard to be good. She witnessed the parade of nannies who'd seen the twins as problems to be managed rather than children to be loved, felt Elena's growing isolation as her ice powers froze out anyone who tried to get close. Maya experienced Ethan's rage at being called a monster, saw him practicing in secret to control flames that only wanted to protect his sister. I see you, Maya whispered, her voice barely audible above the chaos. I see who you really are. The twins heard her somehow, their supernatural senses picking up words that should have been lost in the hurricane of their own making. Elena's hand found Maya's, grasping it with the desperate strength of a child who'd already lost one mother. Don't leave us like mommy did, Elena begged, her gray eyes wide with terror and loss. Never, Maya promised, meaning it with everything she had left. I promise. Ethan took her other hand, and the moment all three were connected, something ancient and powerful stirred in the space between them. The guardian bond Sarah had written about wasn't just magical, it was primal, a connection that transcended species and pack hierarchies to create something entirely new. Gabriel watched in amazement as the bond began to activate. Maya's wound started to heal, but not from her own accelerated werewolf abilities, from the twins' power channeled through love instead of fear. Elena's ice became crystalline beauty that sealed Maya's injuries with precision surgical technique, while Ethan's fire became warm, healing light that burned away the silver poison in her bloodstream. How is this possible? Gabriel breathed, watching his children's destructive powers transform into something restorative and protective. The guardian bond, Logan said, consulting Sarah's journal with growing understanding. It's turning their power inside out, from destruction to protection. Around them, the mansion stopped shaking as the twins' abilities stabilized. Ice that had been chaotic became structured and beautiful, while flames that had been consuming became warm and nurturing. The temperature extremes evened out as Elena and Ethan learned to balance their gifts through their connection to Maya. But Marcus Cole wasn't finished. Seeing his mission failing, the lead hunter activated a device that looked like a silver briefcase, technology that his organization had spent decades developing. The silver amplifier sent waves of concentrated metal energy through the mansion, designed to kill every supernatural being within its range. Gabriel screamed as the silver energy hit him, his werewolf physiology reacting violently to the artificial concentration. Logan collapsed, convulsing as his system tried to process the overload. Even the twins cried out in pain, their newly stabilized powers fluctuating wildly under the assault. But Maya, still connected to Elena and Ethan through the forming guardian bond, did something that shouldn't have been possible. She absorbed the silver energy into herself, drawing it away from the others like a supernatural lightning rod. My turn to protect you, she said, her voice steady despite the agony coursing through her body. Elena and Ethan felt Maya killing herself to save them from the silver, and something fundamental shifted in their understanding of power and responsibility. They looked at each other with the kind of wordless communication that marked twins from birth, reaching a decision that went beyond their 6 years. We can't let her do this alone, Elena said, her gray eyes reflecting wisdom far beyond her age. Together? Ethan asked, extending his hand to his sister. Always together, Elena confirmed, taking his hand. They poured their combined power into Maya, not the destructive force that had nearly brought down the mansion, but something transformative and healing. Ice and fire merged into pure energy that neutralized silver on a molecular level, breaking down the toxic compounds and converting them into harmless elements. The silver amplifier overloaded and exploded in Marcus's hands, showering him with sparks and twisted metal. The concentrated energy that should have killed every werewolf in the building instead dissipated harmlessly, neutralized by the twins' combined abilities working through their guardian bond with Maya. Gabriel felt the silver energy fade and struggled to his feet, his body already beginning to heal from the assault. Around them, the few hunters who hadn't already fled were surrendering, their weapons useless against powers they couldn't understand or counter. Marcus lay unconscious among the debris of his device, his pale eyes closed and his breathing shallow. The man who'd killed Maya's parents and countless other supernatural beings had finally met something stronger than his technology and hatred. Vivian stood frozen against the wall, her perfect composure shattered as she realized the true scope of what she'd betrayed. The children she'd called monsters had just saved everyone in the building, including the hunters who'd come to kill them. As the immediate crisis passed, Maya felt the guardian bond settling into place, a permanent connection that tied her life force to Elena and Ethan's. She could feel their emotions like her own, sense their location no matter how far apart they might be. More importantly, she could feel their love wrapping around her like armor, protecting her from the kind of loneliness that had defined her life since her parents' death. But the bond had taken everything out of her. Maya collapsed again, not from silver poisoning this time but from the massive amount of energy she'd channeled to save the others. The guardian bond was complete, but the cost had been enormous. Maya's light is getting dim, Elena said, her small voice filled with concern as she pressed her hands against Maya's chest. She gave us too much of herself, Ethan added, his flames flickering uncertainly as he tried to share his warmth with the woman who'd sacrificed everything for them. Gabriel knelt beside Maya, whose eyes were fluttering closed despite her obvious struggle to stay conscious. Her breathing was shallow, her pulse thread and irregular. The guardian bond had saved her from the silver, but it had also drained her beyond her body's ability to recover. Maya, stay with us, Gabriel said, his voice rough with emotion he hadn't allowed himself to feel since Sarah's death. The children, Maya whispered, each word a tremendous effort. Are they safe? They're safe, Gabriel assured her, brushing dark hair away from her pale face. You did it. You saved them. Good, Maya breathed, her eyes sliding closed. That's all that matters. Elena's power began to flicker and fade as Maya's life force ebbed. Ethan's flames dimmed to barely glowing embers, their supernatural abilities tied so closely to their guardian that her weakening directly affected their strength. If Maya dies, Elena began, her gray eyes wide with understanding. We all die, Ethan finished, the truth of the guardian bond finally becoming clear to everyone in the room. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 7. Maya's life force was ebbing like tide retreating from shore, and with it, the twins' connection to their extraordinary powers dimmed to barely flickering embers. Gabriel knelt beside her still form, watching helplessly as Elena's ice magic sputtered like a candle in wind while Ethan's fire reduced to nothing more than the faintest glow around his small fingers. The guardian bond that should have saved them all was instead becoming their shared tomb. There's more to the ritual. Logan called out, his voice hoarse from shouting over the earlier chaos. He clutched Sarah's journal with hands that shook from silver exposure, pages fluttering as he searched frantically through his late Luna's careful handwriting. The guardian bond isn't complete. Gabriel's head snapped up, hope and desperation warring in his storm-gray eyes. What do you mean? The guardian saves the children, but then the pack must save the guardian. Logan's finger traced lines of elegant script, his voice gaining strength as he read Sarah's words aloud. It requires the Alpha's blood freely given, but not just blood. A willing sacrifice of the heart. Gabriel didn't hesitate. He bit into his own wrist with savage efficiency, letting his blood drip onto Maya's pale lips. The metallic drops seemed to disappear into her skin without effect, and for a moment Gabriel felt the crushing weight of failure settling over him. Then Elena and Ethan, wise beyond their 6 years in the way that children who'd lost too much too young could be, exchanged one of their wordless communications. She's not just our guardian, Elena said softly, her small hand resting over Maya's heart. She's our pack. Our family, Ethan added, his voice carrying the absolute certainty of childhood truth. But the pack has to accept her first. Gabriel understood immediately. Maya had been running as a rogue for 8 years, never belonging anywhere, never claiming or being claimed by anyone. The guardian bond required not just magical connection, but emotional acceptance, true belonging. I, Gabriel Stone, Alpha of the Moonstone Pack, claim Maya Hart as pack family, Gabriel declared, his voice carrying the formal authority of ritual. The words seemed to shimmer in the air between them, weighted with supernatural significance. I, Logan Hayes, Beta of Moonstone Pack, accept Maya Hart as pack family, Logan responded, understanding flowing through him as he spoke the ancient words. One by one, the pack members who'd fought their way through the chaos stepped forward. Warriors still bleeding from silver wounds, staff members who'd risked their lives to reach their Alpha's family, even some who'd arrived too late to prevent the attack, all of them spoke the ritual words that would bind Maya to their pack structure. But it still wasn't enough. Maya's breathing remained shallow, her pulse barely detectable beneath Gabriel's fingers. The twins looked at each other, then at their father, with expressions that held depths no children should possess. She needs a real place in the pack, Elena said quietly. A permanent place. Make her our new mommy, Ethan added with the directness that only children could manage. Then she can never leave us. Gabriel's breath caught in his throat. The twins weren't just asking for a nanny or even a pack member, they were asking him to choose a mate. To open his heart to the possibility of love again after 3 years of carefully maintained emotional distance. In her unconscious state, Maya found herself standing in a moonlit forest clearing where a woman of ethereal beauty waited with patient grace. Sarah Stone looked exactly as she had in all those photographs throughout the mansion, golden hair catching starlight, blue eyes warm with infinite compassion. You saved my children, Sarah said, her voice carrying the gentle authority of a Luna who'd never needed to raise it to be obeyed. I tried to, Maya replied, surprised to find herself whole and uninjured in this strange between space. I don't know if it was enough. You did more than save them. You gave them something I never could. Sarah moved closer, and Maya caught the scent of spring flowers and warm sunshine that seemed to surround Gabriel's deceased mate. What? Maya asked, genuinely confused. A choice. I was their mother by blood, bound to love them regardless of who they became. You became their guardian by choice, seeing them clearly and choosing to love them anyway. Sarah's smile was radiant with approval and something that might have been relief. That kind of love is transformative. I'm dying, aren't I? Maya asked, surprised to find that the prospect didn't terrify her as much as she'd expected. The guardian bond is too much. That depends, Sarah replied, tilting her head with a gesture so reminiscent of Elena that Maya's heart clenched. Do you want to live? The question seemed simple, but Maya understood the layers beneath it. This wasn't just about survival, it was about accepting the full implications of the guardian bond, about stepping into a role that would change everything about her carefully constructed life. I want to live. For them, Maya said without hesitation. Even if it means accepting a mate bond with Gabriel? Even if it means becoming Luna of a pack? Sarah's expression remained gentle, but her blue eyes searched Maya's face with uncomfortable intensity. Maya hesitated for the first time. She'd been alone for 8 years, trusting no one, depending only on herself. The idea of opening her heart to that kind of vulnerability again was terrifying. I don't know how to be part of a pack, Maya admitted. I don't know how to be someone's mate. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail them? Love isn't about being perfect, Sarah said with the wisdom of someone who'd loved completely and been loved in return. It's about choosing to stay when things get hard. It's about fighting for each other even when you're scared. Sarah stepped closer, reaching out to touch Maya's face with fingers that felt surprisingly solid for a spirit. Gabriel has been afraid to love again since I died. He's built walls around his heart to protect himself and the children from more loss. And now? Maya asked, though she thought she already knew the answer. Now he's more afraid of losing you than he is of loving you, Sarah replied with a smile that held all the warmth of summer sunshine. The question is, are you brave enough to let yourself be loved? Back in the physical world, Gabriel felt the ritual calling for something more than blood and pack acceptance. The guardian bond required emotional truth, the kind of vulnerability that could only come from genuine feeling. He leaned down to whisper in Maya's ear, his voice rough with emotions he'd kept locked away for 3 years. "Maya, I don't just need you for the children. I need you for me." The words seemed to tear themselves from his chest, painful and necessary. "Be my mate. Be my Luna. Be my everything." Maya's eyes fluttered open, glowing with the golden light of her wolf as the guardian bond completed itself through Gabriel's declaration. The connection between all of them strengthened and solidified, no longer fragile but permanent and unbreakable. "Did you just propose while I was unconscious?" Maya asked, her voice weak but tinged with the kind of humor that suggested she was going to survive after all. "Did you just accept while you were dying?" Gabriel shot back, relief making him giddy as color returned to Maya's cheeks. "Maybe," Maya said, and the twins squealed with delight that their plan had worked. Their celebration was interrupted by movement from across the debris-strewn hallway. Vivian Cross, who'd been silent since her betrayal was revealed, broke free from the pack members holding her in protective custody. Her perfect composure had shattered completely, replaced by the kind of desperate fury that came from watching everything she'd planned crumble around her. "This is wrong," Vivian snarled, her eyes blazing gold with werewolf rage. "You can't choose a rogue over proper pack bloodlines. She's nobody, a damaged survivor with no connections, no breeding, no worth." She lunged toward Maya with claws extended, making one final attempt to eliminate the woman who'd stolen everything Vivian had believed should be hers by right. "No one hurts our family," Elena declared, her gray eyes blazing with power that was no longer destructive but purely protective. "Not ever again," Ethan added, stepping beside his sister with flames dancing around his small form. The twins' power flared in perfect synchronization, but this time instead of the chaotic destruction that had nearly brought down the mansion, they created something beautiful and controlled. A barrier of crystallized energy formed between Vivian and Maya, ice and fire woven together into something that looked like stained glass windows depicting scenes of family and protection. Vivian's claws scraped harmlessly against the barrier as her momentum carried her forward, and she stumbled back with shock and rage warring across her perfect features. Gabriel rose from Maya's side, his alpha power radiating through the damaged hallway with the kind of dominance that made even the strongest wolves want to submit. When he spoke, his voice carried the absolute authority of someone who would not be questioned or defied. "Vivian Cross, you are banished from Moonstone Pack for treason and endangering children." The formal words of exile fell like hammer blows, each one severing another connection between Vivian and the only family she'd ever known. "You'll regret this," Vivian said, her voice shaking with a mixture of fury and something that might have been grief. "Other packs won't accept this abomination of a Luna. They'll see her as weakness, as proof that your leadership is compromised." "Let them try," Maya said quietly, struggling to sit up with Gabriel's help. Her voice was still weak, but it carried the kind of steel that suggested she'd face down worse threats than pack politics. Gabriel's arm tightened around Maya's shoulders, his touch gentle but possessive. Together, they radiated the kind of united strength that marked true mates, two people who were stronger together than they could ever be apart. Elena and Ethan approached their father and Maya, still holding hands in the way that had become natural to them since their powers first manifested. Their young faces glowed with the kind of happiness that children wore when the adults they loved finally figured out what seemed obvious to everyone else. "We have a present for you," Elena announced, her gray eyes sparkling with mischief and joy. "A wedding present," Ethan clarified, bouncing slightly on his toes with barely contained excitement. They concentrated together, their combined abilities creating something that neither could have managed alone. Ice and fire swirled in the air between them, forming intricate patterns that gradually took the shape of a sculpture. The finished piece showed a family of 4, Gabriel, Maya, and the twins, all connected by flowing lines that suggested both protection and love. "It won't melt," Elena said proudly, running her small fingers along the ice portions that remained perfectly solid despite Ethan's flame. "And it won't burn," Ethan added, touching the fire elements that danced eternally without consuming the ice they touched. "Just like us," Maya said softly, understanding the deeper meaning behind their gift. The sculpture represented their family, different elements that should have been incompatible, but that worked together to create something beautiful and lasting. Gabriel pulled both children into his arms alongside Maya, creating the kind of family embrace that marked new beginnings. For the first time since Sarah's death, the mansion felt like a home rather than just a fortress. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 8. 3 months later. Maya stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the newly rebuilt mansion, watching Elena and Ethan play in the garden below. The children moved with the easy confidence that came from being truly secure for the first time in their young lives, Elena creating intricate ice sculptures while Ethan added delicate flame details, their powers working in perfect harmony. The attack had changed everything. Not just the physical structure of their home, which Gabriel had rebuilt with supernatural-resistant materials and state-of-the-art security, but the very foundation of who they were as a family. Second thoughts? Gabriel's voice came from behind her, warm with the kind of contentment that had replaced the constant tension he'd carried for 3 years. Maya leaned back against his chest, feeling the solid strength of him supporting her. The mate bond had settled into something deeper than she'd ever imagined possible, not just the supernatural connection that let her feel his emotions, but the everyday intimacy of shared coffee cups and stolen kisses, of late-night conversations and early morning laughter. Never, she said, meaning it completely. Just marveling at how much can change in so little time. Through the windows, she could see Logan supervising the construction of a new security checkpoint. The attack had taught them all hard lessons about trust and preparedness, but it had also brought unexpected gifts. The pack was stronger now, united by the shared experience of protecting their alpha's family against outside threats. The council's decision came through this morning, Gabriel said, his arms tightening around Maya's waist. Unanimous acceptance of our mating bond and your status as Luna. Maya turned in his arms, studying his face for any sign of the political concerns that had worried them both. The werewolf community wasn't known for embracing change, and a rogue wolf becoming Luna of one of the most powerful packs in North America had raised eyebrows throughout the supernatural world. No challenges, she asked, though she could see the satisfaction in Gabriel's storm-gray eyes. Hard to argue with results, Gabriel replied with the kind of smile that still made her heart skip beats. Our pack's territory hasn't been breached since the attack. Other alphas are sending delegations to study our security improvements. And Elena and Ethan. He gestured toward the garden where their children were teaching pack youngsters how to safely practice their own developing abilities. They're not monsters anymore, Maya finished, understanding flowing through her. They're teachers. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. Elena's ice powers, once chaotic and fear-driven, now created healing environments for injured pack members. Ethan's fire, previously destructive when he lost control, had become a tool for controlled demolition and careful construction. Most importantly, they'd learned to use their abilities to help other supernatural children who struggled with powers that seemed too big for their small bodies. A soft knock at the office door interrupted their quiet moment. Come in, Gabriel called, though Maya could already sense who it was through the pack bonds that connected them all. Elena and Ethan entered with the kind of purposeful stride that suggested they were on a mission. Both children glowed with health and happiness, their cheeks flushed from outdoor play and their eyes bright with the security that came from being truly loved. We have something for you, Elena announced, holding her hands behind her back with barely contained excitement. Another something, Ethan corrected with the precision that marked him as his father's son. This one's special. Maya knelt to their eye level, her heart swelling with the kind of love she'd never expected to feel. Being their mother, not just guardian, but true mother in every way that mattered, had filled hollow places in her soul she hadn't even realized existed. What kind of special? She asked, playing along with their obvious delight. Elena and Ethan exchanged one of their wordless twin communications, then Elena stepped forward with her hands cupped around something that glowed with soft blue light. We made it together, Elena explained as she opened her palms to reveal a pendant unlike anything Maya had ever seen. Ice and fire had been woven together at the molecular level, creating something that pulsed with gentle warmth while maintaining the crystalline beauty of frozen starlight. It's a guardian stone, Ethan said with the seriousness that marked important announcements. Mommy Sarah's journal told us how to make them, but only when ice and fire work together. Maya accepted the pendant with hands that trembled slightly. The moment it touched her skin, she felt the connection strengthen, not just to the twins, but to Gabriel, to the pack, to the very land they protected. "It will keep you safe," Elena said, her gray eyes reflecting wisdom far beyond her 6 years. "And it will keep us connected no matter how far apart we are." "Not that we're planning to be apart," Ethan added quickly, wrapping his small arms around Maya's waist. "But just in case." Gabriel fastened the pendant around Maya's neck with fingers that lingered against her skin. The guardian stone settled against her collarbone like it had always belonged there, its gentle warmth spreading through her chest. "There's something else," Gabriel said, his voice carrying the kind of anticipation that made Maya look at him sharply. "The adoption papers came through," he continued, pulling an official document from his desk drawer. "As of this morning, Elena and Ethan Stone are legally your children as well as mine." Maya's vision blurred with tears she didn't try to hide. She'd been their guardian, their protector, their chosen mother in every way that mattered emotionally. But having it recognized legally, having the world acknowledge what her heart had known since that first night when Elena's nightmare had called to her, it was everything she'd never dared to dream. "Does this mean we can call you Mom now?" Elena asked, her voice soft with hope. "Instead of Maya?" Ethan added, bouncing slightly on his toes. Maya looked at these two extraordinary children who'd chosen her when no one else would have her, who'd seen past her scars and her damaged history to the love she had to offer. "I would be honored," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Mom," Elena said, testing out the word like she was tasting something precious. "Mom," Ethan repeated, grinning as if he'd discovered magic. Gabriel pulled all three of them into his arms, creating the kind of family embrace that marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Through the windows, Maya could see pack members going about their daily routines, children playing, adults working, everyone moving with the easy confidence that came from being truly safe. But it was more than safety they'd found. It was belonging. "I love you," Gabriel murmured against Maya's ear, the words still new enough to make her shiver with delight. "I love you too," she replied, meaning it with every fiber of her being. "All of you." As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Maya realized that the scared 16-year-old who'd hidden in a closet while her world burned had finally found her way home. Not to a place, but to people who'd chosen to love her despite her broken places. The guardian stone pulsed against her chest, a tangible reminder of the bonds that connected them all. Elena's ice magic had taught her that strength could be beautiful, while Ethan's fire had shown her that destruction could also be creation. Gabriel's love had given her the courage to trust again, to believe that she deserved happiness. "What are you thinking about?" Elena asked, her small hand finding Maya's. "Fairy tales," Maya said, surprising herself with the answer. "The kind where the princess gets rescued by a prince?" Ethan wrinkled his nose in the way that suggested he found such stories lacking. "No," Maya said, smiling at the children who'd rescued her far more than she'd ever rescued them. "The kind where a broken family finds all its missing pieces and becomes whole again." "That's not a fairy tale," Elena said with the logic that marked her as far too wise for her age. "That's just us." And as Gabriel's arms tightened around them and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Maya knew Elena was right. This wasn't fantasy, this was real, messy, complicated love that had grown from shared danger and mutual choice. This was family. This was home. This was forever. The guardian stone pulsed once more against her chest, and Maya Heartstone, rogue no more, finally understood what it meant to belong somewhere completely. In the distance, a wolf howled, not in mourning or threat, but in pure joy at being alive and loved and home. The sound echoed through the mountains, carrying with it the promise of tomorrows filled with laughter and challenges overcome together. Maya smiled and howled back, her voice joining Gabriel's and the twins in a harmony that spoke of bonds forged in fire and sealed with love. Their song rose into the night sky, a declaration to the world that the Stone family was whole, was strong, and was ready for whatever adventures tomorrow might bring. Together. Always together. Forever bound. I know you enjoyed this video. Do well to like this video and subscribe to this channel. I would also love to hear your thoughts on this video in the comments section below. Share this video to family and friends.